So our next speaker on the list is Chris Hall. I'm jumping on people aren't quite sure where they're going to pop up. Chris Hall is Head of Equality and Diversity at Montfort University. How long have you been there?
2.5 years.
Been there 2.5 years. So, yeah, welcome.
Hello everyone. I'd like to start by asking how many people have ventured onto the Montfort University campus in the last year. That's fantastic, and it's just absolutely pulled the rug under some of the arguments that I was going to make. So, I think what's really interesting, I'm afraid I won't be as articulate as some of our speakers today, but I really wanted to have a conversation about the challenges that we're facing. I am new to Leicester, and in fact I've not actually made the move here. I grew up in a very white, very safe environment in Devon, and then in London I moved to Walthamstow, and really that's where I've begun to develop my understanding of what diversity and integration means. And I've got some observations, having lived in different places, being in London for 10 years, studying in Bristol itself, you know, a city that was built its wealth upon slavery and exploitation. And then you come to Leicester, which, you know, it's, I'm not sure whether it lays claim to the first city with more than 50% of its population being being non-white population in the majority. I know Birmingham and Bradford run it close. But certainly, ostensibly, it's a city through which diversity should run rich through its veins. And it should be a city that's far more comfortable with its multicultural roots than any other city that you visit in the UK. But what's really interesting is if you look at how the city organises itself, it's a lot like those other cities that I've lived in as well. And you have parts of the city that are black, parts of the city that represent particular parts of the Asian community, and within that you'll have subgroups as well. And you know, we will have African black communities and Afro-Caribbean black communities, and then you've got different white communities as well. And I think it's interesting, you know, that we break down, which a couple of our speakers have said, around what diversity and difference is. And the bottom line is we're all different. The top level line is, and we're not very good about recognising that and dealing with it. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. You spoke really eloquently about the curriculum that we have. And what I'd say, Max, sorry to pick on you a little bit, but you look around your library, and I'm just looking at this bookshelf here and trying to see if I can spot an author in the kids section there that doesn't strike me, doesn't jump out at me as being non-European, non-white. There might be, but you know, that's what I hit. And here we are in the Narborough Road with some of the most diverse cultures and communities that we've got. And as we move around, do we see ourselves represented wherever we are? And you know, we see this at Montfort University as well. It's a great university. I used to work on a national level doing a similar role. So I've probably visited at least half of the 160 universities that we have in the UK. And I actually chose to come and work at Montfort University because of its attitudes and its culture. And I've got a few things to sort of send around, but we've got this charter, our diversity charter, that says that everyone that comes to Montfort University should have the freedom to be themselves, freedom to inspire others because of their diversity, and the freedom to succeed. And that's a great matter, it's a great mantra. But if you look at our data, we are better than lots of universities, but we still have major challenges. So our women achieve more than our men. The students that come to us with whose parents have achieved well, and therefore you can draw parallels with their socio-economic status, their wealth, do better than those students that come from low-income backgrounds. Our disabled students, despite having the second highest population of disabled students in the UK, achieve slightly less well than our non-disabled students. And we're recognised in the sector as being one of the most inclusive universities. The big elephant in the room, of course, is the attainment of our students of colour compared to our white students. So even after you've factored out all the other things that I've just been talking about, so gender, your parents' background, your wealth, our BAME students are around 12% less likely to achieve a good degree as are white students. And you can get technical about it, but about 80% of our white students come out with a first or a 2-1, compared to about 68% of our Black, Asian and students from other minority ethnic backgrounds. And we've done a lot of work around this, but actually some of the things, some of the answers to it, they're clear to see, and they're really obvious. And I always think of universities as kind of like microcosms of society. We have food shops, we have places to meet, eat, socialise, places to go to work, places to relax. There's the gym, the leisure. We do a lot of what we do in society. And we see some of the things that are happening in society in Leicester happening at the Montfort as well. So you come to a lecture hall and what happens? Well, actually, and I'm generalising here. We see all of our black students sit together. We see all of our white students sit together. We see all of our women sit together. We see all of our men sit together. And you get these like little pockets. And my challenge to those students is, you come to university to learn. Do you think you're going to learn the most by sitting next to the person who looks the same as you, has the same background and upbringing to you? Or do you think you're going to learn something a little bit more by engaging with somebody who looks different from you, is different from you? And that's something that I'd kind of like to throw out there. And it's really interesting because you talk about the food of Leicester and, isn't that wonderful? Well, what about all the other elements and cultures as well that we can engage in? And I think that's really interesting. And a challenge to get people to think about it. I just wanted to say a little bit, because a couple of you mentioned institutional racism. So Baroness Doreen Lawrence is the Chancellor of Montfort University. The Chancellor is the kind of figurehead in our older universities. I'm not sure who the Chancellor of Leicester is. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Generally it's princes, princesses, people of notoriety. And who are our people of notoriety and people in power? Well, if you look across the House of Commons, are they in notoriety? I don't know, they're certainly not holding themselves up in great esteem at the moment, but they're predominantly white, they're predominantly male, and if you look across any position of power, you see that position. And actually I had a really interesting statistic around the FTSE 100 chief executives, so the 100 top companies in the UK. And there's more people who run those companies called Dave or David than there are people of colour who run those companies. So, that sort of paints something. But anyway, to come back to DMU, our Chancellor is Baroness Doreen Lawrence, who is the mother of murdered teenager Stephen Lawrence. And we've had a lot of debate around what institutional racism means, because it's the Macpherson report into the incidences that led up to and then failed to reveal the true underlying reasons for the failures into the investigation into Stephen's murder that born us this phrase of institutional racism. And what does it mean? 20 years on from Macpherson, we still don't really mean what we talk about when we say institutional racism. And I'll tell you what it means. It means that we're not recognising that people are different. It's not recognising the fact that we need to do things differently. If we carry on doing things the way in which we've always done things, we will get the same results. So it's a challenge to all of us, and this isn't just a challenge to lay at the door of white people. This is a challenge to lay at the door of everybody, because we are all different. How are we going to do things differently? That means we engage with one another, that we learn from one another, that our children can go out and be the best they can, engage in different cultures and different learning environments and societies, so that collectively we develop our humanity and our humankind, but also our learning and what we need to do as advancement as well. So that's a challenge to you. And, I've got some cards. What I'd like you to do is just have a think about that. And if you do nothing else after tonight other than obviously enjoy it and give us a massive round of applause at the end of it, I'd like you to, and obviously give Ambrose a great pat on the back for organising tonight, I'd like you to think about what you can do and write a pledge to yourself. So take a card and pass them around about what you could do differently in order to try and make a difference and help us integrate and then hopefully, overcome the institutional racism, the barriers that we face, the challenges that you well, in terms of our teaching staff and the barriers that we face. The other thing I'd like to say is in terms of our role models as well. So often I talk about how our people of power or perceived power are very homogenous in their appearance. There's role models all around us. And, we need people from all walks of life to be role models. For me it was my grandpa, and one thing, and this is probably the person who sowed the seed into why I do what I do now, and he said, I am better than no man, and no man is better than me. And I'm sure he got it from somewhere else, but I hold my grandpa in high esteem, so I've not looked to see if it can be attributed to anybody else. But if there's young people you can mentor, if there's older people that you can change their views on something to engage with it, then I challenge you to do that. Up and down here, really interestingly, you've got the Polish restaurant over the road, you've got the Ghanaian restaurant, you've got vegetarian restaurants. Who goes into those eateries? Do they go into those eateries to find people that look like themselves, to eat food that they're familiar with? Can we challenge ourselves just in a little way with things that we might do differently and which make a difference? And I think that really is the key to making Leicester a truly multicultural and integrated society and city. Thank you.
Thank you.